Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of our Codable Built with Heart podcast. We have a very experienced and special guest with us today. We have Mike with us. It's really awesome to have you on this podcast, Mike.
Nice to be here, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Look, I'm sure almost all Codable experts would know who you are, but just for the people listening that haven't heard of you, do you want to just give a quick intro of sort of like how long you've worked at Codable and a bit of a background on what kind of WordPress work you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, so I joined Codable in 2016, so almost 9 years ago
Super old
now.
school, super old school.
Yeah, and I have a quite a niche area that I work in that is performance oriented only. So I help clients find out why their websites are crashing. If they get lots of traffic, when it's a Black Friday sale or they're running Google ads, Facebook ads, that kind of stuff. I help them troubleshoot why it's happening and what I would do to fix it. And I help their team understand, yeah, the complexities of what's going on and the steps to address what's happening. Also, if the site is taking forever to load images and text and that kind of thing, right? Like there can be many reasons why, and I help people troubleshoot and understand that and do a lot of training for developers and clients, I would say, to sort of like get them to what I call wear a performance hat. Sort of like
Hmm.
a lot of clients don't, business owners don't, they just kind of like getting a website is like buying a car. You just kind of like you get it and then you just can run it forever and it's fine. But like, websites are complicated just like cars and you kind of need to give them maintenance, give them tune-ups from time to time. Sometimes you need to, yeah, do work on them, let's say. And so I help them, yeah, appreciate and understand that and sort of plan for the future, not just people usually come to me with their site like on fire, let's say,
Yes,
right? And like a
exactly.
flood in the basement and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I get them to like fix that, but also prepare ahead for like what's to come if your website is like a human being, right? Like it's it's an infant, then it's a toddler, right? Then it learns to like talk and then becomes a teenager and adult, and like there are different sort of pains performance wise that emerge over time that can also be related to security. If you have custom plugins that need to be maintained and updated.
I think performance is one of those things that it's so linked to like search engine optimization, and like I know because I've seen some of your kind of case studies that you do. You're a big fan of not just doing the work but showing you, hey, after I've done this work you will generate X more sales, or like, what, it's one thing to do the work, but the client wants to see the proof, like your site loads 4 times faster, and that 4 times faster is going to turn into X amount of sales or X amount of traffic.
Yeah, it's true. Like, because most people, if you ask them, "Oh, do you want a faster website?" They'll be like, "Yeah, sure." Right?
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
when they know how, when they know it's like probably the number one UX metric, right?
Hmm.
Like, you can make something easy to use, intuitive, blah blah blah. But if it's not fast, like none of the rest matters. I
Exactly.
don't think. Like it's great that it's pretty and intuitive and cognitively easy to navigate and stuff. But if it's not snappy, it's not fluid, like it doesn't. You want things where our attention spans are so low and short
Absolutely.
these
Absolutely.
days, right? We need things to be instant, right? And like companies like Amazon and Walmart, they will invest millions and millions per year just to shave off another 300 milliseconds or whatever
Absolutely.
for transactions because they know what it translates into to dollars for them. But more like smaller businesses or medium businesses, they kind of want to know, okay, like yeah, I want a faster website, but if it's going to cost me X, right? That's going to cost $5,000 or $10,000. They're like, well, that can feel like a lot of money, right? But if you then explain to them, well, like you invest this 10,000 in your site's performance and you're going to make that back within a couple of months, right? And then, I pay for myself in the most cases very
Yes.
easily, right? So clients often when they hear like the costs and stuff, they're like, oh, like it feels like I'm trying to take money out of their wallet, but
Exactly.
really it's like no, I'm trying to stuff a lot more in there for the next many years, ideally, right? If things go according to plan. And it's yeah, a lot of it is sort of psychological to sort of get people to understand like no, like this is an investment in your site. It's kind of like working out, going to the gym, eating well, right, is an investment in your
Yes.
longevity and being able to perform well as a human being, whether it's at work, your personal life, whatever is important to you. If you do like charity work or something like that. And it's the same kind of thing for a website that it's like some of the benefits are not necessarily tangible, right, in terms of how much money you're going to make, like the ROI, right, return
Mm-hmm.
on investment. But sometimes it's like, if you have a lot of employees working in the back end, managing orders or entering support tickets or whatever it is, and like if they're spending, 5 minutes doing something that could take them a minute because your site is sloppily slow and like not, yeah, not responsive, then that is costing you productivity. Like, people also prefer to get things done quickly if they can,
Exactly.
right? Like,
Yes.
no one wants to wait a minute for something to load if it could take 5 seconds, right? And then there's also like it makes you look uh, technically unsophisticated or like incompetent to
Mm-hmm.
some extent, right? You're like, what, if you have a great product, if you're selling shoes or you've developed something that you're really proud of that you want to sell, but your website is not like it takes too long to do things. People can love your product, but they have this like, you just get a bad impression where you're kind of like, oh, like I want to love these people even more and what they're doing, but like they're taking away my time,
Yes.
like they're wasting my time to some extent. It's just, yeah, time is the most precious thing human beings have, right? As
Look,
a resource.
I mean, look, you're such an interesting person to have on, and I know we kind of want to talk about client onboarding and your kind of screening process. And I know you have a great opinion about value-based pricing. We wanted to talk about your kind of onboarding process. What is your kind of client onboarding process?
Yeah, so I used to, well, when I started, I was just testing the waters, right? And trying to see what worked. And I'm very like obsessive about like very detail oriented about getting results for clients. And, when I work with someone, I treat the website as if it were my own,
Yep.
right? So all the knowledge that I built over time and experience that I have from working with other clients and my own websites, right? It's like I try to draw on as much of that as possible to try and find answers or for the immediate solutions, but also again prepare them for the future. And that's not like some clients are looking for an immediate fix that will cost them X amount of money they've decided in their head. Let's say it's like $500 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's so hard to be able to predict what the outcome is going to be, right? Like I didn't build this house, right? If the website is a house, it's kind of like, well, I didn't build this house, so I don't know what the materials are made of, the quality, the documentation, the manuals, like where am I going to know where to find stuff? And you can get some, I would call them like, dumpster fire-ish,
Absolutely.
situations sometimes where you're just like, wow, like I can't believe this thing still works. And, this is going to take a long time to figure out what's going on. And you can plug one hole, one leak and then another one emerges. So sometimes you're kind of playing like whack-a-mole.
Yep.
So my process is very much like I want the client coming in to be prepared for it can be more of a journey rather than you go to the doctor, you get a pill, and that's the end of it. Sometimes it's like, oh, we're going to need to run some more tests, and it kind of can take a few days. Sometimes it can take a few weeks, sometimes months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the problem. So my onboarding process is trying to attract clients that understand or are prepared for or open to the idea that this can take some time, right? Not that I'm trying to draw things out on purpose, but just, it's just the nature of the beast, right? That sometimes things just take longer than you hope. Um, and so I have a questionnaire that people fill out first,
Yep.
where it's like maybe 10, 15 questions to, tell me about your business, basically, like how many visitors do you get? Are there a lot of logged in visitors or not logged out? People who, if it's a membership site or a learning site
Mm-hmm.
or forum of some kind, then I know that there are going to be a lot more people logging in, which means caching is something that you typically can't leverage as much, right? But you can, but it takes some black magic or a lot of testing to make sure that it's going to work. Um, their initial symptoms, like is your site crashing all the time because of 504 gateway timeout, 502 bad gateway, that kind of stuff. Because then I know, okay, probably they're running out of PHP resources, and then that tells me we probably need to use New Relic, or we need to get you on a host that has more resources or more freedom to tweak configurations. Or if it's like, oh, my Google page speed scores are really low,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
Yes.
or your core web vitals, if my Google's telling me I'm failing the core web vitals, and they might know what they are, they might not, and they want to get those fixed. So it sort of gets me a good idea of what current pain is the client in, and the website, like how is it suffering, and what do they want to fix. Um, so then I have an idea of where do we start, right? Because sometimes clients come to me and they complain about their Google page speed scores, and then I
Yes.
look under the hood and I'm like, okay, yeah, like your scores are bad, like you have a 4 or something like that, but really, like there's something much more uh, insidious going on underneath and damaging. Like if there's a database problem that
Yep.
it's way bigger than it's supposed to be. Like the WP options table, for example, could have like 500 megabytes of auto-loaded data. That's a really, really bad thing
Mm-hmm.
to have. Then if they're saying like, hey, I really want to fix my Google page speed scores, I'm like, well, like, so it gives me a way to screen for, like, it's kind of like an initial almost like blood test or something like that, where I can get a, like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
have an idea of where we need to start, and then I have a script that I will run on the client's website or staging website, ideally, that runs a bunch of commands I've built over time, and that gives me this does like a spot check for look for these other things, like, oh, if their WP cron, right, has scheduled tasks in there, like there could be like there's
Yeah.
1,000 tasks in there. It's like, oh, like that probably something is not right, right? Like the plugin might be adding them incorrectly, or they're not executing on time or not finishing, so they're stacking up. Just a bunch of stuff like that, right? So it's also to get an idea of how much they are, like how desperate are they? I mean, in a good
Yes.
way, right?
No,
Like,
no.
oh, like I've sort of, like I
Yep.
usually get clients who have they've gone to someone else and they spent $500 on like a speed up package or something like that, and they just didn't get the results that they wanted, or their agency that typically tries to help them exhausted all of their resources and possibilities. So they're like, go hire this guy, or maybe you need to find a consultant who specializes in this kind of stuff. So I'd like to know how willing are they to try whatever I'm going to suggest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if a client comes to you and they're like, hey, like my website is slow, I'm like, okay, what theme are you using? And they mention a theme, I'm like, like I don't think that theme's good for performance and from my experience. Or they're using a page builder, right? Page
Oh
builders have
yes.
a
Yep.
not a great reputation
Mm-hmm.
for performance, or whatever. And their hosting service, hosting tends to be one that is, you need to try another one if the site is crashing or running out of resources.
Okay. You know what? That sort of brings me to an interesting question, and I guess this is for both clients and especially experts. Like you deal with like a host of clients with a host of different, like as you said, they kind of say I need my page speed improved, or I need just my general speed. What would be your top kind of, I don't know, 3 to 5 like red flags where it might be written in the survey, like from one of the answers, or even just the initial before the survey or after the survey, where they'll say something and it'll scream to you like some flag, like no, 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 this client is just not going to be a really good fit. I'm sure like if everyone has their set of red flags, what would be your top flags that as soon as you hear this or see it in the questionnaire, you're like, okay, I don't think this is going to be a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, it piggybacks well over my past, like what I was just finishing up, right? Like I asked them these questions of like, are you willing to change your hosting? Are you willing to change your theme?
Yes.
Blah blah blah. If they're like say no to any of those,
Okay, then that's to use like a, yeah.
yeah, well, it's like if I'm going to the doctor, right? And I'm like, hey, like, this, my foot hurts, or my knee is, my lower back is in pain all the time. and they're like, oh, are you willing to, go to the physio? Are you willing to try these exercises? Are you willing to try these acupuncture or whatever,
If they
right?
say no.
Willing to try these pills, and like everything you just say no to, you're like, well, what are you doing here then? Like, if you're not willing to test or try anything differently, how do you expect anything to change, right?
Hmm.
Like nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So for me, the willingness to experiment and be open to trying new things is critical, because otherwise, like, I'm not a magician. Like, I'm good at what I do, and sometimes I can do something that looks really incredible, but I usually have to change something, right?
Hmm.
Like, usually we're going to change one or more variables. And if the client is unwilling to change any of what I would consider the key things, like hosting, the theme, page builder, plugins, whatever, like ad strategy, like if there's something where it's like, oh, like if you want to use these kind of ads for them to be cache friendly, we need to be on a host or using a system that allows us to do certain things. And if
Hmm.
they're unwilling, I'm like, well, I'm trying to help you, right? Like, I'm trying to help you achieve your business objectives, whatever those may be. And I have a lot of experience helping clients in similar situations to yours. So I'm going to leverage everything that I've tried that has helped other people. And if you're not willing to try any of those things, it's like, well, what are we doing here? Like, if a client is trying to tell you how to do your job, right?
Oh,
It's like if I go to the
yes.
doctor, I'm like, oh, well, I Googled and like I'm sure,
Yes.
or I asked ChatGPT and it was like, hey, like I think it's kind of the same idea, right?
Yeah,
Like if you're going to
absolutely.
an expert to get help, then and you just think you know better, or you're not willing to change anything or try anything new, it's like, well, what's the point? You're just wasting everyone's time, and your own. And some clients, like, this is a very human thing, so it's not like I'm not judging anyone. I do it
Yeah,
myself as well. Like
absolutely.
I've got things where I go to the doctor. I'm like, hey, 'cause I'm like, well, like I prefer like this natural approach instead of this alternative one, so I would rather do this instead, right? And then sometimes I need to go through my own paces of like, oh, well, I tried all these natural things, and it's been like a year and a half, and I'm not feeling any better. So let me try and go, you know. And so it's yeah, like I prefer clients who are kind of willing to like, I'll do anything
No,
at
no,
this point within
absolutely. I'm sure every codable expert that's listened to this have seen in the workroom, like, oh, this should only take an hour, or if they start giving
reason.
specifics on how long something will take, this is obviously a flag of saying, hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, how would you know that? It's good to hear some red flags from you for sure. And I guess the next question, which is going to lead into the value based pricing thing, I guess, nicely, is look, I'm always scared to go for these speed performance jobs because I feel that to quote on something like that, it's really hard because obviously, like, you have the client that says, hey, I want my Google page speed to be 99. And the thing is that, like, it's so much harder for me to think, okay, how long, how much this will cost, where if someone says, hey, I want a 10-page site, but for the kind of work you do, as you said at the start, it's so hard to know. It could be a hosting issue, it could be they could be using plugins that you have to completely change them, or perhaps you have to use a new theme. And these are things that you can't know until you know what I mean? And so for me, it's easy for me to quote a job to say, yeah, or at least to quote a window to be like, it's between 3 and 5. But for you, it must be so much harder sometimes to know it. Like, it could take 3 months of just hardcore work to get that site. And so how do you handle these sort of situations? And yeah, that I guess leads into the value-based pricing thing, where you have this huge client that might, you know what I mean, that their website is he's generating 15 to 20,000 per month. So I guess that's easier to handle than someone who has a very small business.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, as part of the onboarding process, I insist on a call
Okay.
first. Like, so they can book a call. It's a paid call where we spend like at least an hour,
Okay.
sometimes longer, where I kind of tell them a lot of the stuff that I told you today of like how I operate. There's a lot of content on my website too about like my approach and my philosophy and stuff. So see if it resonates for people before we even bother going to the call stage. And during that time is when I explain to them and prepare them for like, this could take a really long time, like, and I ask them, why does this matter to you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are the pain points? Like, you need enough. generally pain and desire before you're willing to make changes in your life, your business, whatever it may be. And so knowing the why of why this matters to them, right? Sometimes it's like, well, we've lost half of our revenue, right? And it's like, oh, well, how much were you making before and how much are you making now, right? Just it's just good to know is if you're gone from 200,000 to 100,000 per month, like, oh, that's crazy. And then being able to then charge 10,000 to probably could make a significant improvement in that. It's like, well, that's a great ROI,
Yeah,
right? So, but
exactly.
often I get clients who are, they might just be starting out and it's been a couple of years and, it was like sort of a pet hobby project to see, and then they're like, oh, this is actually like, it has legs, it's really taking off. And they hadn't really prepared or like set budget aside for the growth that was going to come from a performance standpoint. And then telling them, even if they're making good money, it can be hard for them to swallow or accept the idea of like, oh, like if I want this to be fixed or improved to a significant degree, it's going to cost me this, right? And that eats into the profit margins that they hadn't planned for
Yes.
the fiscal year. And then there are stakeholders, investors, or whatever that might be negatively affected and stuff. But they also know that if they don't fix, if your website is crashing all the time and has lost half its revenue, like you need to fix that or your business is going to die anyway, right? So they kind of get put in this very difficult position where they know they need help from someone like me with my skills with that my team have developed over the years. But like the paying part can feel like a lot of money depending on where your business is at, right? So I encourage clients to as they're growing to put money aside for the tech in general, not
Hmm.
just maintenance, development, any custom work you might need, preparing for the future. But like performance is one of those that if you don't have it, you're screwed. Your business is going to suffer. Like you're always going to make more money if your website is performing better. So yeah, like that the answer to your question is basically during the initial call, I prepare them, I give them this whole spiel, like where I'm like, hey, like this is the reality, right? And I will draw on stories from other clients that have a similar
Hmm.
had a similar situation. I'm like, oh yeah, that particular, like it took us a week, and like, we found these issues. They had a team, and they, I supervised them and got them to work on it, and this is what happened. This was the outcome, right? I try and give as much as possible for them to relate to be like, oh, like this is the hope, or I want this to be your situation as well, right? Because if I'm not going to make a positive impact, I don't want to take a client's money either. Like the reason I do this is to make life better for people, right?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
customers, the employees, the business owners, et cetera. And yeah, so I during that call too, I'll usually get them to log in and share their screen and like so I can look at the plugins list and I'm like, oh, like that one, like I've seen that be a problem before, and I'll look at certain settings to kind of get an idea of what I think could help, right? Because I usually won't tell them to change anything during that time because then you become liable to some
Yeah,
extent, right? If I
absolutely.
like told them to tick something off or whatever,
Yes.
even if I'm like, oh, I'm like 90% sure that's gonna be a huge improvement,
Hmm.
it could, you never know someone's setup and getting like the complexities and details within an hour is just not
No,
possible.
absolutely.
But it can
Absolutely.
give you a good sort of like lay of the land, right? Of like, okay, and then I sort of start building the action plan in my head of like, okay, like if this client wants to put me on the retainer for the week or whatever it is, like these are the five things I'm going to do first,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
And hopefully, like with any luck, right? Like one of those five things gets you 80% of the way there or 60%. And once you start seeing some kind of tangible improvement, right? Where like things feel faster in the back end or the checkout process is going faster or employees are, all of a sudden it only takes 5 seconds to do something instead of 30. Like that gives you the sort of confidence and momentum and faith to continue. Like, okay, like this guy knows what he's doing. He's getting us results, and I measure everything and everywhere that I can to get something objective. So it's not just feeling
No, no,
based. It's like, oh, it
absolutely.
feels faster.
No,
It's
no,
like, well, that's
yeah.
great. It feels faster, but it's nice. Like most things can be measured in time and space somehow, right? So I'd like to do that as much as possible because also help remind people of like where we started and where we've gotten to by the end. Because if in some cases you don't get where you were hoping to, right? Like you might only get 60% of the way there, and it might be something that's holding you back to get you the rest of the 30 or 40% is like you need to rebuild your website
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you use this plugin or this theme that was just like that's our major bottleneck.
Yes.
And if that's the case, it's like I can't wave a magic wand and make your site use another theme. So during the onboarding process too, like during that call, if I see like a page builder or a plugin that I know is super problematic, I'll tell them. So we don't have to go through like they don't have to pay me a retainer to be like, oh, like I'm going to tell you that's your biggest problem.
Yes.
Like if it's, yeah, some page builder that is consistently problematic, I'll say, if I were you, like I think you should change the theme and the page builder first. And if it's not speed isn't where you want it to be, then come back and then I'll do like an audit of some kind, whether it's back end or front end, if it's a database audit, whatever it is, to sort of figure out what's going on. So I won't like take a client's money for like a troubleshooting project if I know that 80% of the problem is something that is just so entangled and so key to the way their website works or their business model or whatever it is that like I'll tell them to change that first.
It's all about being super transparent at the start. I guess you set the expectations, super early. Have that call first, see the plugins, and then you set the expectations from the start. Where I think that is a mistake many make in all kinds of business, where they just want to close the sale, so they tell the client what they want to hear without even kind of knowing everything. Where you'd prefer to say, hey, let's set the expectations not low, but like let's be realistic first, which I think is super cool. Just to close things out, because I know the whole value-based pricing, there are experts on Codable that are huge fans of it. Others, it's a harder sell. If you were going to give a kind of like a 2-minute kind of sales pitch on why you feel value-based pricing is a critical part of the process.
Yeah, it's a good question. I like analogies, as you probably noticed during this thing, right?
Yes.
So I'm thinking, but in terms of like, let's say like we're in the same boat, right? Like, um, and I can have like you could be paying me $1 per
Yep.
row, or you could be paying me 100 per row, right? How much effort do you think I'm going to be putting into those rows, right? Like if you're, and it's like, yeah, the boat's going to go faster or it's going to grow and evolve as well. And we're both going to be happier getting there. With our motivation is going to be that much stronger. The effort that we're going to be putting in is just so much more powerful that it incentivizes both of you to have more like skin in the game of making this project and the outcome as spectacular as possible, right? As soon as you like, if I'm going to a doctor and they have their goal is to spend as little time and energy and as possible trying to figure out what my health situations are, they're probably going to miss a bunch of key symptoms or details that might help me in the long run, right? So I would rather the doctor, be able to take their time, run as many tests as necessary, ask me as many questions, get my history, blah blah blah, right? And then they're going to be able to probably do a way better job. And then also the more they know about my situation and how much I'm suffering or dissatisfied with certain areas of my life health wise, they become invested in like my betterment because they're like, oh, like humans generally want to see other human beings thrive and be doing well, right? And for websites and businesses, it's the same. Like I'm like, let's get in this boat together and like make this boat as awesome as possible and be sailing super, like let's patch that hole, let's improve the sail, let's do whatever. Not just like here's like some gum and some thumbtacks and whatever, like do your best with the boat kind of thing, right? It's kind of like that's how I think of it. And I'm much more of a like quality over quantity person in general. It's how I operate in my life and my business. So I much rather work with a few clients that I can give amazing results than work with as many clients as possible and give them like mediocre results, right? Like that's just my philosophy, and that's not how everyone sees things, and that's fine. But that's how, yeah, like that's why my onboarding process is linked to that kind of philosophy. Because if clients that doesn't fit for them and how they want to operate in their business, that's fine. But then it probably means we're not going to be like aligned in a way of our approach of because I'm more invested in the client's success than they are. Right? I'm like, oh,
Yep.
we could do this too. Like, there's this other things that we can do to like they'll make your customer experience better or your employee experience better. And they're just kind of like, sometimes they're like, oh, that sounds great, but we don't have the budget or the time or the resources, whatever it is, and that's fine. But sometimes they're just so distracted by something else that's really on their minds that they think is more important, which is also fine. But yeah, it's that's why the call is so important, and I'm sort of getting an idea of like a feel for them and like, are we going to be a good fit working together? Is it going to be fun too, right? Because I
Yes,
don't
of
want to
course.
work if it's not going to be fun, if we're not going to laugh and stuff. I'm like, well, what's the point there too, right? Like money's great, but I want
Yes.
to enjoy the process very much because otherwise, yeah, like what's the point, you know?
The last question I'll ask you, and I guess I think it'll be like a question I think I'll ask at every podcast. It's a kind of, it's the future. I wanted to ask about in the world of AI that we're living in, and kind of in your field. Are you scared of AI? Are you excited with AI? Do you think it will make your job easier? Do you think in 15 or even less in 5 to 10 years it's gonna kind of take over your job? How do you kind of feel on AI? How are you using it now, and how do you feel it will impact your industry in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like AI is cool. It does, some impressive things, but it's nowhere near where I need it to be to
Mm-hmm.
replace me at all. I think most people and businesses want to work with people, not robots, right? Like, especially something as intimate as your website's performance and health. It's kind of like, oh, like I want someone who, has worked with other people and knows, can draw from their experience from to help me. Um, so like, I have a very holistic approach when it comes to website performance. So I'm looking everywhere. Like I'm looking in their Cloudflare account, I'm looking in their hosting account, I'm looking in the database, I'm looking in the plugins, looking at the PHP code, like CSS, everywhere, right? Looking for where can I find some answers. And I think AI is a very, very long way away from being able to look at
Yes,
everything
I I,
at the
I,
same
I I
time
think so too.
and connect the dots in the ways that humans can. I think with training, like I'm sure I'll start setting up some custom LLMs to start feeding, um, let's say like reports or audits over time, so it can start to gather some patterns and learn like, oh, and under these conditions, like this was the thing that we needed to do the most in terms of like, replacing that plugin or turning this, changing this setting. But I think, yeah, it's a long way away from being able to do that because you need to standardize everything in a way that it can be fed to the machine, and then you also have to tell them what things meant as well. So currently, I use it mainly to like help design database queries that are super complicated
Yes.
or
Yep.
convert database queries to like an Elasticsearch, like technical stuff. I mean, it gets things wrong a lot of the time too. So,
Yep.
like currently when I use it, I use ChatGPT uh, for the most part, and it's like this is not the technology that's going to take over the world, guys. Like, I'm sorry, like it's great, but it's like it's so far from being able to understand our intentions at a very like deep level that you and I would be able to if we're
Yeah.
just having,
Absolutely.
just kind of like get it. Um, so yeah, like I'm not scared that it's going to take away my job. I think.
I mean, you were saying earlier, like about the crucial thing after you said it in the process of getting the client. I think it was after the questionnaire. You have that phone call. You said it's sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours. That phone call, them sharing their screen, you looking at plugin lists. This is a feeling. Like this is something an AI tool, even if you gave the AI tool the list of plugins, there's things that you know from your years of experience that no AI tool would be like, oh, this plugin is a little bit problematic. Like, yes, there are things that over time you could train it. If they see the same plugin, I don't know, 50 times, maybe it gets it. But this phone call, that there's no AI that could do that call as well as you personally. So even as simple as you getting the client, that has to be done by you. It's all experience, years and years of experience. So yeah, I just had to ask because yeah, I mean obviously we are living in a world of AI, and with our profession, yes, there are a lot of things that AI can do, but I think yeah, I also think that you're pretty safe. That you kind of need that one-on-one experience with the client, and even if the client went to an AI tool and said, hey, speed up my site, and it gave the client a list of things to do, it still wouldn't, you know what I mean? It still wouldn't be able to do it. So, yeah, I think you are really safe at the moment, which is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fine, and just have to adapt in any climate of any how jobs change over time, right? Like if you're, yeah, I think working on the soft skills is a good idea if you're a
Yes.
freelancer, for example, right? Like you should, if you don't really like talking to people, you don't like the human side of things, like, well, maybe you're gonna have to learn how to do that. Because yeah, because people like to, once I talk to someone on the phone, usually they're like, I want to work with you, right? Because they can tell
Yes.
I'm like super driven and passionate and like really enthusiastic and like really want to help them and get things where they want them to be. Like a robot's never going to be able to do that.
It was great to have you on Mike. We had a really great discussion. I think we spoke in depth about kind of the three main points. The onboarding process was super interesting. Also, your kind of red flags and what you look for is obviously critical to that process as well. And at the end, to kind of talk about for value-based pricing and AI are things that are kind of really important as well. So it was really great to have you on, and yeah, you really are a really interesting expert to have on one of these things.
Yeah, thanks very much, Anna. Yeah, this was really awesome. I'm glad we could do this and can do it again sometime. Maybe another version or a different topic, but super, I think, yeah, encouraging these kind of conversations between instead of it being like an us versus them when it comes to clients and freelancers, right? It's like, hey, like we're in this together. Like we both want to go in the same direction. And yeah, I think talking honestly about this kind of stuff is makes a better experience for everyone.